Hi everyone. For today's video, I'll be talking about an overview for essay writing in MUET or Malaysian University English Test. This is in the writing paper task 2, in which students are required to either write an academic essay or what we call the extended essay. Firstly, like all exam questions, it is crucial for students to analyze the essay question carefully. If you are familiar with the MUET question, you would have understood that there are some rubrics to help guide students before coming to the question statement. What we require students to do is to read the question very carefully. The rubrics may or may not help you to understand the question, and you may choose not to respond to the rubrics. In the next slide later, I will show you an example about what the rubrics are. For the second step, once you look at the question statement, find or highlight the keywords and the link word to link both or three sets of keywords in the question statement. Now you must always remember, when you start writing the essay, all the keywords that you have highlighted must appear in the introduction, body paragraphs, which should be found in both the topic sentence and the closing sentence. And last but not least, these keywords should also appear in your conclusion. Let's take a look at a typical example of a MUET Task 2 writing question. You attended a youth seminar that focused on teenagers' behavior recently. One of the speakers mentioned teenagers nowadays lack courtesy. Now the first 4 lines on top are what I call the rubrics. By looking at these 4 lines, you might have understood a little bit that this essay would have been related to teenagers' behavior. And that's about all. When you write your introduction, you do not actually have to refer to what the speakers have mentioned, or you do not have to mention that you have attended a youth seminar. Now remember, these 4 lines are just there to guide you or to help you understand the question statement. Then take a look at the forwards. Teenagers nowadays lack courtesy. Based on these 4 words alone, you're expected to write at least or for about 250 words, 1 introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and 1 concluding paragraph. Very quickly, you need to analyze these 4 words, which are the keywords. So what I've done for you here is using color coding. Teenagers, which is the subject, and courtesy, the object. The link between the two of them would be the word lack. In your whole essay, you need to prove or to argue whether teenagers lack or do not lack courtesy. Remember, do not change your subject or the object. For example, don't talk about old people, or don't talk about lack patience. These are all irrelevant, and you would have written out of topic if you started to change the subject or the object in the question statement. After finding the keywords, you should not waste time. You should start dwelling into your introduction. And normally I use a simple format, the GST format, in which students are required to write about 2 or maximum 3 general statements, especially if you do not write fast. You can choose to start with either the subject, teenagers, or object, courtesy. The second sentence onwards, you should start to scope down in order to attack the issue, which is the question statement. After the general statements, you should start to write a stand. Now, a clear stand would help the readers to understand your opinion. So you can choose to either agree, disagree, or partially agree with the question statement. When you choose to partially agree, you can choose to write 1 point agreeing and 2 points disagreeing with the question statement, or 2 points agreeing and 1 point disagreeing with the statement. After which, you should train yourself to write a thesis statement. A thesis statement is written usually in one sentence by writing out the 2 or the 3 points you have planned to use in your body paragraphs. Now, this would have pointed out to you that you need to plan before you start writing. Planning your 3 main ideas is basically essential before you can reach thesis statement. Let's try a very simple exercise. Not writing, but trying to identify the GST components in a sample introduction. Let me read to you the introduction that I have written out based on the question that I used just now. With modernization and rapid development, teenagers nowadays are touted to be lacking in manners. Their rude behaviors and somewhat ghastly display of social etiquette can be frustrating to watch, pointing to the fact that they might be less courteous. I partially agree that teenagers nowadays lack courtesy. Despite some adolescents' rudeness towards their own family members and the elderly, there are still some teenagers who genuinely show politeness today. Now, going through this paragraph very quickly, are you able to identify the general statements in which the keywords are addressed, the stand, and the thesis statement in which you can clearly identify the 3 main ideas? In this slide, I'll reveal to you the answer, and you can confirm whether you've done it right or wrong. Don't worry if you make mistakes, because we all learn through mistakes. Let's focus on the question again. Teenagers today lack courtesy. I have only provided 2 general statements here. This is especially helpful if you don't write fast or if you need a long time to think. Remember to focus on the keywords that you have highlighted, and these keywords will be able to help you focus better in writing your general statements. So for example, with modernization and rapid development, teenagers nowadays are touted to be lacking in manners. So I have the first keyword subject, teenagers, and the second set of keywords, lacking in manners, which are paraphrased, showing the same thing as lack courtesy. The second sentence, their rude behavior and somewhat ghastly display of social etiquette can be frustrating to watch, pointing to the fact that they might be less courteous. Now, they or their would refer again to teenagers. So I don't have to really specify teenagers as my subject, because the first sentence has helped to establish the subject matter. Again, in this second sentence, I am showing more detail, rude behavior, and ghastly display of social etiquette to help readers to focus on the fact that teenagers nowadays may be lacking in courtesy. Now, after the 2 general statements, I am happy enough to go to my stand. I partially agree that, and then you write out the question statement. So readers would be guided and understood thoroughly that you have chosen your stand, partially agree. Therefore, in your thesis statement, your 3 main ideas should show agree and disagree points. So here, despite some adolescents' rudeness towards their own family members, that would be my point 1, okay, and the elderly, that's my point 2, there are still some teenagers who genuinely show politeness to others. This would be my point 3, clearly established to help readers understand what I'll be writing in my body paragraphs. After the introduction, we shouldn't waste time and should straight away go into the body paragraphs. Now, many students or people feel that to write a body graph is easier compared to an introduction. However, do think whether are you able to write an effective body paragraph. Now, in my classroom practice, I usually use a kite diagram to guide students to understand what components are needed in an effective body paragraph. So on top, I have the topic sentence. This is where we start our body paragraph. In a topic sentence, we would have included all our keywords, teenagers, lack, courtesy, and also include your main idea. For example, my first main idea, which is they are rude to their family members. So after the topic sentence, you can choose to either write why they are rude to their family members or how this phenomenon happens. There is no hard and fast rule that says you must write how first or why first. However, it is common practice for students to attack why, probably because it's easier to write or to give reasons on the topic sentence. Again, don't just go for one sentence explanation. It would have been better if you are able to expand the reason, after which move on to how. Sometimes students find that it's difficult to clearly explain how something happens, probably because there is not enough time to really think about it, or they might not have the language to clearly explain this phenomenon. Thus, another way out is to give specific examples in which this example would be able to explain how something happens. I would advise to give slightly, not overly lengthy example in which you're able to show the cause and effect of something. Along the line, you are actually explaining how something happens. Now, after explaining why and how, a mature student would start to write at least one sentence explaining about the effect when students are rude to their family members. A better student would think further ahead and give an impact, which is a bigger picture. Perhaps the impact to the country if a lot of teenagers behave in a rude manner or lack courtesy. This would have made your body paragraph more impactful and much clearer. After that, go to your closing statement. Again, in this closing statement, you would have your keywords and reintroduce your main idea. That would have concluded one body paragraph. Last but not least, it is time to write a conclusion after you have finished your 3 body paragraphs. And normally when we come to conclusion, we don't really have much time left. So what I propose is to write at least 2 sentences in which I summarize as S and S. The first S, summarize all your 3 ideas. Okay, if you have forgotten, go back to your thesis statement and paraphrase from your thesis statement the 3 ideas that you have established. After summarizing your 3 ideas and reaffirming your stand, give at least 1 sentence for suggestion relating to the topic. For example, in this topic, you might want to suggest that parents and teachers can work hand in hand to instill good behaviors, especially in terms of good manners, to improve teenagers' behavior. That 1 sentence can already be a very good closing. If you still have time, obviously you can give more suggestions, but again, don't dwell too long into your conclusion, because the main chunk, as I've mentioned before, it's actually still the body paragraphs. Now, what I've shared with you is just an overview, and I have not really gone in depth into the writing techniques and the do's and don'ts, for example. A lot would have been done in doing or in writing good body paragraphs, which hopefully I'll be able to share in my future videos. So I thank you very much today for being patiently watching my video. See you again.